Welcome to the Building Lives podcast, hosted by Joe Furey. We're a show that deals with healing, restoring, and navigating relationships. We post weekly to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Thanks for tuning in. Let's do a little introduction. So I know you from a film I've been directing about addiction recovery.
Correct.
You've been consulting on it. You've been a valuable just piece of that puzzle for us. But for anyone who's watching or listening that doesn't know you, give us a little background on a bit of your story and where your heart's at for this podcast.
Oh, thanks, Brad. And it's been an honor and a pleasure to be part of the documentary you're making. My name's, like Brad said, Joe Furey. I've been married 40 years. I've been in ministry full time for about 32 years. And my heart for our podcast is to help people navigate relationships effectively and satisfactorily. There's so many aspects to relationships. First one's with God. Second one is with ourselves. Third one is with others. And the fourth one is in our environment, flourishing in the place God has placed us. So that's our desire, to give tools so that people can be much more effective in handling relationships and, of course, all the different aspects that come with a relationship.
And is this an area that you would say, like, historically, maybe people's tool chest isn't as equipped as maybe it should be? It's an area of struggle you've kind of noticed?
Absolutely. I mean, people need tools. And oftentimes we think of relationships as something that should just happen. And the reality is, it's really a skill set. And if we learn the right tools, we can be much more effective in our relationships, and we can have much more satisfactory type relationships. And that's what we want to help people to do. And I've been in this business a long time. And I'm going to give you a quick overview of how we begin to view life. And we'll be dealing with these different aspects. And
Absolutely.
there are first 6 things that give us a worldview. First one being our family of origin. Whether we grew up in a nuclear family, whether we were in foster care, whether grandparents raised us, whatever was our dynamic in our first relationships, which is always family, starts the course of our belief system on how people are and whether this world is a safe place. And so those are developed there. Then secondly, was your home safe? Was it nurturing? Was it scary? Was it chaotic? Was there abuse? Was there neglect? What's going on in our home? Gives us the idea of whether people are safe or not. Everybody comes into the world with their arms wide open. And as we get hurt, they start to close. And so oftentimes the tools we're supposed to pick up on how to deal with life, we don't get very many good tools. And that's what we take into our adult life. And the second thing that happens with people is their neighborhood. What was our neighborhood like? Safe, secure, friendly, scary, upper middle class, lower class, apartments, homes, urban, suburban. What was going on in our neighborhood? Third one is school. How did we live? How did we do our education? Were we successful at it? Were we failures? What was going on there? Were we popular? Were we not? Did we excel academically? Did we not? And so those things form our relationships in how we want to deal with education and moving forward in that environment. And then the fourth one being traumatic events.
Right.
What happened? Was there death in the family? Was there divorce in the family? Was there illness in the family? Was there abuse in the family? Whether physical, emotional, sexual, what was going on? Neglect, what was happening? Nurturing, all those things cause us to be traumatized and affect the way we look at life. And so that gives us tools on how, and I'm sharing all this to share that we gather tools from that, either tools that are healthy or tools that are survival. I got to do what I got to do to get by. I got to navigate and figure out things on my own, or there's a lot of help out there.
Right.
And I can tap into that. And the fifth one being financial. What was going on in our home economically? And that'll affect us. And then, of course, the last one is religion. Where was that in our lives, or was it in our lives? Was it hypocritical? Was it lip service or life service? It actually, for those who went to church, was it a real deal, or was it just something they did and lived a completely different life outside of that? So those things give us tools. And if they're not good tools, or if I didn't get any tools, I will take what I have into my adult life. And that is where I will either succeed and flourish or shrink back and be confused a lot on how life goes. So we want to give some good tools in this podcast.
Absolutely. And it's, I guess, like a lot of us have experienced that you often don't realize how much of your childhood you've dragged into your adulthood. But I mean, I guess just to kind of really stick that out to the viewer, the listener, it's like time does heal things, but a lot of times it's a cognitive thing of addressing things that happened in our childhood or things that affected going one road or another and having to actually address those things. They don't address themselves more often than not.
No, we have to be aware of our motives. And, our childhood roots go deep. And they affect the way we look at life. They affect our belief systems. They affect our relationship skills or lack thereof. It affects every area of our life. If I've never seen my parents navigate through a problem successfully, I don't learn a valuable skill on how to interact in conflict and how to make it a win-win where everybody comes out of it feeling good, feeling like they're making progress, because it's oftentimes a win-lose. And sometimes we have this idea that in relationships, you just kind of fall in with the right person. If you just would get the right person,
Right.
we'd be okay. And not realizing there's lots of right people. It's learning the skill set in order to communicate, in order to resolve conflicts, in order to speak about my feelings, in order to keep my emotions in check, but still allowing myself to have emotions. And all these different avenues of relationship skills don't just happen. They have to be incorporated into our life, and then they have to be practiced to where they become part of our life. It's how we do life now, because everybody does life now. And, and how you do it now is the end result of a bunch of different things in our lives. And
Well, I know I've always been really encouraged by just the different conversations I've been able to have with you over the last year. And I'm really excited some of the places we're going to go, because I know you have a lot of wisdom to offer people and you've been through a lot of things. And you're always willing to go places not everyone will go, or into very vulnerable places in your past and events that have happened to you. For anyone who doesn't personally know you or is tuning into this for the introduction, can you give me kind of maybe like a roadmap of some of the things we're going to talk about on this podcast and what your heart is to do through this podcast?
Well, we're going to look at areas that keep us in bondage, areas that stumble us in our relationship with God, with ourselves, and with others, and also give us tools to navigate what we want to do in life. So many people don't know what they want to do in life, and they just kind of exist, and they have no bigger purpose. Scripture says, my people perish without a vision, without hope, and many of us were not given hopes for our future when we were younger. Nobody pointed us in the direction and said, son, you're gifted in this area. Son, you have talents here. This is the way I think you should go. You can accomplish things, and I'm here to help you accomplish these things. And so when we do not have that kind of hope given to us, that kind of forward thinking, we tend to live in the now, and we tend to make decisions on the immediacy of what would feel best rather than on the longer term, what is best and what will get me to where I want to go. I want to have a good relationship. Well, what does that look like? And how do you get that? And how does that happen? It's not magic. It's a skill set. And, and so I have to be willing to look at what skills do I have and what skills do I need? What are the problems I keep running into? Well, if I keep running into a problem over and over again, it usually indicates I don't have a skill incorporated to deal with it effectively. Something's missing. I don't know what to do, but I know this is a problem. And then to have the courage to ask for help or to seek out, guidance or wisdom or what do I need? And that oftentimes goes against our original belief system that people aren't to be trusted.
Right.
I need to figure out things on my own. So we're going to deal with and hit on these different topics, going to give some understanding on how people operate, and then give some tools for more effective relationships with God, ourselves, and with others.
Yes. All right. I'm excited. I think this is going to be awesome. It's a privilege to get to do this with you. And I hope for the viewers, the listeners, that they're going to follow on the journey and dive into some of these topics that I think a lot of people, struggle with. If you can't find one on the list that you've struggled with, then I applaud you. But I think that's very few people. So thanks for tuning in, and come along for the next one. Thanks for tuning in to Building Lives with Joe Furey. We're a weekly podcast dealing with healing, restoring, and navigating relationships. If you have any questions, please reach out to us at joe.furey@hisplace.com. Thanks for tuning in.